8 months. That was how long I had been away. As the plane began its descent, I stared out the window and smiled. I can't wait to see her, I whispered to myself. I imagined Emily opening the front door. Ethan? Surprise. Then she would run into my arms, laughing and crying at the same time. The thought kept me going through every exhausting day overseas. I pulled my wedding ring between my fingers. Just a few more hours, I said quietly. I remembered our last night together before deployment. Emily had held my hand tightly. Promise you'll come back to me. I promise. No matter how hard things get. No matter what. She smiled through tears. And when you come home, we'll finally start our future. Our future starts the second I walk through that door. Those words had stayed with me every day. The deployment had been brutal. Long nights. Danger. Loneliness. But every time things became difficult, I thought about Emily. I thought about the house. I thought about the family we planned to build. Hours later, I stepped out of the airport carrying my bag. The familiar air hit my face. Home. I smiled. I'm finally home. The drive felt strange. Everything looked familiar, yet different somehow. The old diner was still there. The gas station still stood at the corner. The church bell still echoed through town. But after 8 months away, everything felt distant. Like I was looking at memories instead of reality. When I reached my father's house, I decided to stop by first. I knocked. A few seconds later, the door opened. My father stared at me. Ethan? I grinned. Miss me? Instead of smiling immediately, he froze. His face turned pale. Dad? He blinked rapidly. You're here. Obviously. I thought you weren't coming back for another month. I got unexpected leave. I stepped forward and hugged him. He hugged me back, but something felt off. His arms were stiff. His voice sounded nervous. I pulled away. Everything okay? Of course. You don't look okay. I'm fine. I frowned. Dad, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. The answer came too quickly. I studied his face. He refused to meet my eyes. A strange feeling settled in my stomach. I changed the subject. Where's Ryan? My stepbrother was usually around. He visited my father constantly. Dad hesitated. I haven't seen him today. Really? Yeah. That's unusual. I guess. His nervousness only grew. I laughed awkwardly. You're acting like you've seen a ghost. He forced a smile. I'm just surprised. I wasn't convinced. After a few more minutes, I grabbed my bag. I should go home. Dad suddenly looked alarmed. So soon? I laughed. My wife is waiting. His expression tightened. Right. I stared at him. Dad. What? Seriously, is there something you need to tell me? His mouth opened, then closed. Finally, he shook his head. No. The strange feeling returned. But I pushed it away. I was tired. Maybe I was imagining things. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. As I walked toward the door, he called out. I stood frozen in the doorway. For a moment, nothing moved. My mind refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. Emily and Ryan were in my bed. My heart pounded so hard that it hurt. Neither of them noticed me at first. Then Ryan looked toward the door. His face lost all color. Ethan. Emily turned. The second she saw me, she gasped. Oh my God. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I finally found my voice. What is this? Ryan stood up quickly. Ethan, listen to me. No. Ethan, please. I stared at him. My own brother? Stepbrother. The words escaped him before he could stop them. I laughed bitterly. That's your defense? No. Then explain. Emily started crying immediately. Ethan, I'm sorry. Sorry? Tears streamed down her face. I never wanted you to find out like this. My hand shook. Find out what? She looked away. Ryan stepped forward. Let me explain. I pointed at the door. You don't get to explain anything. Ethan. How long? Neither answered. How long? Emily closed her eyes. 5 months. The answer hit me harder than any punch. 5 months? She nodded. I felt sick. 5 months while I was overseas? Ethan, please. Don't. Ryan swallowed hard. She was lonely. I stared at him. Lonely? Yes. I laughed again. So you decided to help her? It wasn't supposed to happen. Then how did it happen? Ryan lowered his head. We started talking. And? You were gone all the time. I took a step toward him. So that's my fault? No. It sounds like you're blaming me. I'm not. Emily spoke through tears. I was struggling. We were both struggling. I know. Then why? She couldn't answer. Finally, she whispered. I felt alone. I shook my head. I called whenever I could. I know. I sent messages. I know. I counted the days until I could come home. Her shoulders trembled. I know. Then why? She covered her face. Because I was weak. The room fell silent. I felt like my entire life was collapsing. When did it start? Ryan answered quietly. About 3 months after you left. I nodded slowly. So, while I was telling people how lucky I was to have a faithful wife, you were sleeping together. Neither denied it. That hurt more than any excuse. Ryan tried again. Ethan, I never planned this. Stop talking. I care about her. The words exploded something inside me. You care about her? Yes. I stepped closer. She's my wife. I know. You knew every promise we made. I know. You stood beside me at my wedding. Ryan couldn't look at me. I turned toward Emily. And you? She slowly raised her eyes. I trusted you with everything. More tears fell. I know. I loved you. I loved you too. The word too made me furious. Don't say that. Ethan, don't tell me you loved me while doing this. She broke down completely. I'm sorry. Those 2 words felt empty. Months of lies could not be repaired by an apology. I grabbed my bag from the floor. Ryan looked alarmed. Where are you going? I barely slept that night. The anonymous messages kept replaying in my head. This affair is only part of what they've been hiding from you. By morning, I had one goal. Find out the truth. I looked at the unknown number again and typed a reply. Who are you? Several minutes passed. Then my phone vibrated. Someone who thinks you deserve the truth. I immediately called the number. No answer. A text arrived instead. Meet me at Riverside Park. Noon. I stared at the screen. Part of me suspected a trap. The other part didn't care. At noon, I arrived at the park. A woman stood near a bench. When she saw me, she slowly approached. You must be Ethan. Who are you? My name is Sarah Mitchell. So you're the one sending messages? Yes. I crossed my arms. Why? Because nobody else was willing to tell you. My chest tightened. Tell me what? Sarah looked uncomfortable. The affair didn't start 5 months ago. I felt sick instantly. What do you mean? She hesitated. Ryan and Emily have been together for almost a year. For a moment, I couldn't speak. That's impossible. I'm sorry. They said 5 months. They lied. I looked away. The pain somehow became worse. How do you know? I've seen them together. Once? Many times. I clenched my jaw. Who else knew? Sarah lowered her eyes. A lot of people. My stomach dropped. A lot? More than you think. I laughed bitterly. Wonderful. Ethan. No, keep talking. She sighed. People saw them at restaurants. Restaurants? Yes. Public places? Yes. I shook my head. They weren't even hiding it. Not really. The humiliation burned inside me. Why didn't anyone tell me? Sarah looked genuinely guilty. Most people didn't want to get involved. I laughed again. Of course. They thought someone else would tell you. Nobody did. I know. A few minutes later, I left the park. The drive felt endless. My phone rang. Ryan. I immediately declined the call. A second later, he called again. Then again. Then again. Finally, I answered. What? Ethan, please listen. I'm listening. There are things you don't understand. I gripped the steering wheel. Then explain. It isn't as simple as it looks. I nearly laughed. You slept with my wife. I know. That seems pretty simple. Ethan. No. Please. Did it start a year ago? Silence. That was all the answer I needed. You lied. I was scared. You lied. I didn't know what to say. You should have started with the truth. Ethan. I ended the call. A minute later, another call arrived. Emily. I stared at the screen. Eventually, I answered. Her voice was shaking. Please don't hang up. Talk. I love you. No. Ethan. No, you don't. I do. I closed my eyes. How long? She immediately knew what I meant. Several seconds passed. Then she whispered, 10 months. The truth hit harder than I expected. 10 months? I'm sorry. You lied yesterday. I was afraid. Everyone seems afraid after getting caught. She started crying. I never wanted this. Yet you kept doing it. I made mistakes. A mistake happens once. Her crying became louder. I hate myself. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sympathy. Nothing? The numbness frightened me. I don't know who you are anymore. Ethan. Goodbye. I ended the call. That evening, I drove to see my childhood friend Jake. 3 days after discovering the affair, I moved into a small apartment across town. The place was nothing special. One bedroom, one couch, one small kitchen. But it was quiet. And right then, quiet was all I wanted. Every morning, I followed the same routine. Wake up, exercise, shower, plan the day. Military discipline kept me moving. Without it, I probably would have fallen apart completely. The problem was that discipline only controlled my actions. It couldn't control my thoughts. Every night, memories returned. I would sit alone and remember Emily laughing in the kitchen. I would remember movie nights, road trips, anniversaries, promises. Then every memory would become poisoned. I would ask myself the same question. Was any of it real? The answer never came. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah. Can we talk? I replied immediately. Where? An hour later, we sat inside a small coffee shop. Sarah looked nervous. I understood why. The truth she carried wasn't easy. I broke the silence first. Why did you help me? She looked down at her coffee. Because I couldn't keep watching it. Watching what? The lies. I leaned forward. You knew Emily well? We worked together. How close? Close enough to see what was happening. My stomach tightened. What exactly did you see? Sarah sighed heavily. A lot. Tell me. She hesitated. Then she nodded. I saw Ryan pick her up after work. I stayed silent. I saw them holding hands. My jaw tightened. I heard her lie to you on the phone. That one hurt. When? Many times. I looked away. Sarah continued carefully. She would tell you she was home. I already knew what came next. But she wasn't. Sarah nodded. No. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted to. What stopped you? Fear. I laughed bitterly. Everyone seems afraid around here. I know. You could have saved me months of humiliation. I know. She looked genuinely ashamed. I'm sorry. I believed her. Unlike the others, she had eventually done something. That mattered. Sarah looked at me carefully. Can I ask you something? Sure. Did you really never suspect anything? The question caught me off guard. At first, I wanted to say no. Then I thought about it. Really thought about it. And suddenly memories appeared. Emily hiding her phone. Emily becoming distant. Emily canceling plans. Emily acting distracted during calls. I slowly shook my head. No. Sarah waited. Then I corrected myself. Actually, maybe I did. What do you mean? I noticed things. But? I ignored them. Why? The answer came immediately. Because I trusted her. Sarah nodded slowly. Trust can make people blind. I stared out the window. For the first time, I wasn't asking why Emily betrayed me. I wasn't asking why Ryan betrayed me. I already knew what kind of people they had become. Instead, I found myself asking a different question. Why had I ignored every warning sign? The answer wasn't comfortable. Because accepting the truth would have hurt. So I chose denial instead. Sarah finally stood. Take care of yourself, Ethan. I'll try. As she left, I felt something unfamiliar. Not healing, but clarity. Later that evening, my phone rang. Chapter 5. The truth about Ryan. After my father's confession, nobody spoke for several moments. The silence felt heavy. Dad looked exhausted. Linda couldn't even meet my eyes. Finally, I broke the silence. How long have you known the truth? Dad slowly exhaled. More than a decade. I stared at him. And Ryan? He found out shortly before your deployment. I frowned. Why does that matter so much? Dad exchanged a glance with Linda. Then he answered. Because that's when everything started getting worse. I leaned forward. Worse how? His expression tightened. Ryan spent most of his life comparing himself to you. I immediately shook my head. That doesn't make sense. It does to him. We grew up together. I know. We had the same chances. I know. We lived under the same roof. Dad nodded. I know all of that. Then why would he feel that way? Dad rubbed his hands together. Because Ryan always believed you were the son everyone admired. The answer surprised me. Admired? He thought people respected you more. I laughed bitterly. That's ridiculous. You're right. But he believed it. Linda finally spoke. He talked about it for years. I looked toward her. What exactly did he say? She hesitated. That everything seemed easier for you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nothing was easy. I know. But Ryan never saw it that way. Dad nodded. He noticed every achievement. What achievements? The military. I stared at him. Seriously? Dad sighed. Every time someone praised your service, it bothered him. The realization made me uncomfortable. Old memories suddenly started fitting together. Strange comments. Awkward moments. Unexplained tension. Things I ignored for years. Dad continued. At first it was jealousy. I listened carefully. Then it became resentment. My stomach tightened. And after that, his answer came instantly. Obsession. The word hit me hard. I sat back in silence. Dad looked tired. When Ryan learned we shared the same biological father, everything intensified. I frowned. Why? Because he convinced himself you had the life he deserved. I shook my head. That's insane. I agree. But that's how he saw it. The more I thought about it, the worse everything felt. Then a terrible realization formed. I looked directly at my father. The affair wasn't really about Emily. Dad slowly lowered his eyes. No. The answer felt like a punch. I swallowed hard. It was about beating me. Nobody disagreed. Nobody needed to. The truth was obvious. Ryan didn't just want a relationship with Emily. He wanted something that belonged to me. Something he could take away. Something that would make him feel superior. The thought made me sick. A few days later, Ryan called unexpectedly. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. What do you want? His voice sounded frustrated. Emily won't stop questioning me. I laughed. You expected trust? This isn't funny. Actually, it is. He sighed loudly. She checks everything. I leaned back. You built a relationship through lies. I know. Then why are you surprised? Ryan didn't answer immediately. Finally, he muttered, I don't know. I ended the call. An hour later, my phone rang again. This time, it was Emily. After a moment, I answered. What is it? Her voice sounded tired. Can we talk? We are talking. No, I mean really talk. I remained silent. Then she whispered something unexpected. I ruined my life. There was no excuse in her voice. No attempt to shift blame. Only regret. I closed my eyes. What happened? She hesitated, then answered honestly. I finally see who Ryan really is. I listened. He gets angry all the time. I said nothing. He checks my messages. Still nothing. He constantly #Chapter 6. Her apology came too late. I stood at my apartment door staring at Emily. She looked exhausted. The confidence she once carried had completely disappeared. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I unlocked the door. You can come in. Thank you. We sat across from each other in silence. The atmosphere felt heavy. Emily looked down at her hands before speaking. I've thought about that day, every single day. I remained quiet. If I could go back and change it, I would. I studied her face. Would you really? Yes. Or would you just make sure you didn't get caught? The question hit her hard. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. That's fair. It wasn't an answer. She took a shaky breath. I would change everything. For the first time in a long while, I believed she was telling the truth. Emily wiped her eyes. I ruined the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't respond. She continued anyway. You trusted me. Yes. You gave me everything. Yes. And I threw it away. The room fell silent again. After a moment, she looked at me. I wish I understood why I did it. You've already tried explaining. I know. And none of those explanations helped. She nodded slowly. Because there isn't a good explanation. I couldn't argue with that. She looked around the apartment. This is all my fault. What exactly do you want from me, Emily? Her voice trembled. I want another chance. Months ago, those words would have meant everything. Now they felt empty. Like they belonged to a life that no longer existed. I looked directly into her eyes. Do you honestly believe we can fix this? She hesitated, then quietly answered, No. The honesty surprised me, but I had to ask. Why? Because I still love you. I closed my eyes for a moment. Part of me remembered our wedding day. The promises. The dreams. The plans we made together. But another part remembered opening that bedroom door. Both memories existed at the same time. And that was exactly why things could never go back. When I looked at her again, my decision felt clear. I can't give you another chance. She lowered her head. I know. I would never trust you again. I understand. I would question every late night. She nodded. Every text message. More tears rolled down her cheeks. I know. Every excuse. I know. I sighed deeply. That's not a healthy marriage. No. That's two people trapped by the past. Emily covered her face. For a moment, I felt sorry for her. But sympathy wasn't enough to rebuild trust. After a while, she looked at me again. I haven't slept properly since you came home. I listened quietly. The guilt follows me everywhere. Her voice cracked. I barely recognized myself anymore. I believed her. The regret was obvious. But regret couldn't erase consequences. I'm sorry, Ethan. This time, the words sounded completely genuine. Maybe for the first time. I nodded. I accept your apology. Her eyes widened. You do? Yes. A small spark of hope appeared in her expression. Then I shook my head. But accepting your apology doesn't mean I can... Chapter 7. The Fall of My Brother. I found Ryan waiting near my apartment building. The moment I saw him, I knew something was wrong. He looked exhausted. His clothes were wrinkled. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. Most importantly, the confidence he once carried was gone. We need to talk, he said. I folded my arms. Then talk. Ryan let out a frustrated breath. My life is falling apart. I looked at him calmly. I can see that. His expression immediately hardened. You enjoy this, don't you? No. Really? Really? Ryan shook his head. You look like someone who already won. A bitter laugh escaped me. Won what exactly? He pointed toward me. Everything. For a moment, I just stared at him. Then I asked the question I had wanted answered for months. Why did you do it? The anger on his face faded. Silence replaced it. I waited. Eventually, he looked away. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Ryan lowered his head. Then years of resentment finally came pouring out. You always had the life I wanted. I sighed. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. We grew up in the same house. That doesn't matter. It should. Ryan laughed bitterly. You were always the one people respected. I shook my head. That's not true. It is to me. His voice cracked slightly. You had direction. I remained silent. You had purpose. The pain behind those words surprised me. Ryan wasn't speaking like a rival anymore. He sounded like someone carrying years of disappointment. Then he quietly said something that explained everything. I was jealous. The honesty caught me off guard. He continued before I could respond. When I learned the truth about our father, everything got worse. I frowned. Worse how? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I listened. I convinced myself that you had taken something that should have been mine. I shook my head. I never took anything from you. I know that now. His answer came so quickly that it surprised me. For the first time, he wasn't arguing. He wasn't making excuses. He was simply telling the truth. Ryan sat down heavily on the curb. When things started with Emily, I felt powerful. I listened quietly. For the first time, I thought I had finally beaten you. The words sounded pathetic now. Not victorious. Just sad. Ryan laughed at himself. You know the worst part? What? It didn't make me happy. I wasn't surprised. I thought hurting you would fix everything. He looked down at the ground. But I still hated my life. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he looked directly at me. I destroyed everything. I nodded once. Yeah. Dad barely speaks to me. I said nothing. My friends disappeared. Still nothing. Emily left. That got my attention. She left? Ryan nodded. 3 days ago. I wasn't shocked. Their relationship had always been built on unstable ground. What happened? Ryan rubbed his face. We argued constantly. I almost laughed. Imagine that. The sarcasm made him wince. But he didn't argue. Instead, he nodded. She said our entire relationship was built on lies. I looked away. She wasn't wrong. No. For the first time, Ryan agreed without fighting. The change was impossible to ignore. He looked tired of defending himself. Tired of pretending. Tired of blaming everyone else. Finally, he stood. Chapter 8. Building a New Future. After speaking with Olivia Bennett on the phone, I decided to attend the Veterans Leadership Program she had told me about. A few days later, I walked into a meeting room filled with former service members. Some were talking confidently. Others sat quietly, looking uncertain. I understood exactly how they felt. Not long ago, I had been struggling to find my own direction. Olivia noticed me and walked over. You made it. I smiled. I said I would. I'm glad. Me too. She handed me a folder. Take a seat. You're going to meet someone important. A few minutes later, a man entered the room. The conversations immediately quieted. Olivia stood. Everyone, this is Mark Reynolds, director of the program. Mark greeted several people before stopping in front of me. You must be Ethan. That's right. He shook my hand firmly. I've heard good things. I glanced at Olivia. She laughed. Don't blame me if he's disappointed. Mark smiled. I doubt that. The meeting soon began. Mark discussed career opportunities, leadership training, mentorship programs, and support systems for veterans transitioning into civilian life. As I listened, I found myself paying close attention. Many of the people in the room looked exactly the way I had felt after returning home. Lost. Confused. Unsure of what came next. Different stories. Same struggle. When the meeting ended, Mark approached me. So, what do you think? I looked around the room. I think this matters. He nodded. It does. I hesitated before speaking. I'd like to get involved. Mark smiled immediately. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. Over the next several weeks, I became an active part of the program. I helped organize workshops. I met veterans searching for jobs. Others were struggling with relationships. Some were simply trying to figure out who they were outside the military. One afternoon, a young veteran sat across from me. He looked frustrated. I feel like I lost myself. The words sounded painfully familiar. I nodded. I know that feeling. He looked surprised. You do? More than you realize. He remained silent. I leaned forward. When everything changes, it's easy to believe your life is over. His eyes stayed on me. But it isn't. What if I don't know what comes next? I smiled slightly. Neither did I. The young man listened carefully. I thought my future had been destroyed. Chapter 9. Closure and Karma. Several months passed. The Veterans Program continued growing. My work kept me busy. For the first time in years, my days were no longer dominated by painful memories. One afternoon, I was leaving a meeting when someone called my name. Ethan. I turned around. Emily stood a few feet away. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked different. Not just physically. Something in her expression had changed. The defensiveness was gone. The excuses were gone. Only quiet sadness remained. Hi, she said. Hi. She offered a small smile. I wasn't sure you'd stop. I wasn't sure either. That made her laugh softly. Then she looked down. I won't keep you long. I nodded. Okay. She took a deep breath. I heard the veterans program is doing really well. It's growing. I'm happy for you. The words sounded genuine. Not forced. Not jealous. Genuine. Thank you. Emily looked away briefly, then back at me. I owe you something. I sighed. Emily? No. She shook her head. Please let me finish. I stayed quiet. Tears appeared in her eyes. I spent a long time blaming loneliness. I listened. Then I blamed mistakes. She swallowed hard. Then I blamed circumstances. The pain in her voice was obvious. But eventually, I had to face the truth. What truth? Her answer came immediately. I made those choices. I remained silent. No one forced me. She wiped her eyes. No one manipulated me. I nodded slowly. I know. Emily took another breath. You gave me loyalty. The words hit harder than I expected. And I gave you betrayal. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she said something I never expected to hear. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I looked at her carefully. I'm not asking for friendship. Her voice trembled. I'm not asking for another chance. For the first time, I believed her completely. So why are you here? A sad smile appeared. Because I wanted you to know that I understand what I destroyed. The honesty surprised me. She continued. I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't argue. Because she wasn't asking me to. After a long silence, she stepped backward. I hope you're happy, Ethan. I smiled slightly. I think I'm getting there. Tears filled her eyes again. Good. Then she turned. Chapter 10. The Man I Became. 1 year. That was how much time had passed since the day my world fell apart. 1 year since I walked into my bedroom and discovered the betrayal that nearly destroyed me. 1 year since everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family shattered in front of my eyes. And yet, as I stood inside the Veterans Center on a bright Monday morning, I barely recognized the man I had been back then. Morning, Ethan. I looked up and smiled. Morning, Mark. Mark Reynolds walked into my office carrying a folder. You've got 3 new veterans joining the program today. I laughed. Only 3? He grinned. We're growing. That part was true. The program had expanded far beyond what any of us originally expected. What started as a small support network had become something much bigger. Employment assistance, career mentoring, leadership development, resources for veterans struggling to adjust to civilian life. Most surprisingly, I had become one of its leaders. Mark placed the folder on my desk. You've done good work here. I shook my head. We've done good work. Maybe. He smiled. But you've helped change a lot of lives. After he left, I sat quietly for a moment. A year ago, I couldn't even manage my own pain. Now, I was helping other people navigate theirs. Life had a strange way of changing direction. Later that afternoon, Olivia stopped by my office. She leaned against the doorway. You busy? Depends. On what? Whether you're bringing work or coffee. She laughed. Coffee. Then I'm free. A few minutes later, we sat outside enjoying the afternoon sunshine. Olivia smiled. You seem happy. I thought about the comment, then nodded. I think I am. You think? I laughed. Okay, I am. There it is. I looked around. The Veterans Center was busy. People were talking, working, planning, building new futures. A familiar feeling settled inside me. Peace. Not perfect happiness. Not constant excitement. Peace. The kind that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Olivia studied me. What are you thinking about? The past. Her eyebrow lifted. Good memories or bad memories? Neither. She looked curious. Then what? I smiled. Lessons. That answer seemed to satisfy her, because she nodded and changed the subject. But later that evening, after work ended, I found myself thinking about those lessons again. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me. That much was true. There had been days when getting out of bed felt impossible. Days when anger consumed every thought. Days when I believed I would never trust anyone again. Yet somehow, I had survived. Not because I was stronger than everyone else. Not because the pain wasn't real. But because eventually, I made a choice. A choice to stop letting the worst thing that happened to me define everything that happened afterward. A few days later, I found myself driving through my old neighborhood. I hadn't planned it. The decision happened almost automatically. Before I realized it, I was parked across the street from the house where everything changed. The house I once shared with Emily. I sat quietly behind the steering wheel. A year earlier, just seeing the place would have filled me with rage. Now it felt different. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Ordinary. Just another building. Not a monument to betrayal. Not a symbol of pain. Just a place. I stepped out of the truck and stood on the sidewalk. For several moments, I simply looked at it. Memories surfaced naturally. The good ones. The bad ones. The painful ones. The happy ones. All of them belonged to my story. None of them controlled my future. My phone buzzed. A message from Jake. Still meeting us for dinner? I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. A second later, another message arrived. This one from Olivia. Don't be late. I laughed quietly. The simple fact that people were waiting for me felt meaningful. A year earlier, I felt completely alone. Now my life was filled with genuine friendships. People I trusted. People who cared about me. People who had